anybody who feels like they don't have the right, you have the right? If you're listening to this, that's something to really keep in mind. You have the right to be creative. You have the right to pursue the things that make you excited and inspired. Hello and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. On the show, I interview peak performing world changers in the creative, social impact, and earth conservation spaces. If you like what you hear on this episode, you're going to want to check out the bonus mini episode you can access if you become a member of my coffee club. If you do, you'll get access to bonus episodes, new art, new writing, and other fun benefits at buymeacoffee.com/IsoldeT. See the show notes for more details. And now, let's get on with the show. Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg, and I am not alone here today. As you might know from if you've been listening every Tuesday since the beginning of the year, since the beginning of January, I, along with the fabulous, amazing humans, Sergio, Megan, and Alan, have been going through Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. We've gone through each week by week. We've done the exercises. We've worked on it. Some of it has been more frustrating than others. It's been kind of a wacky ride, but we've gone through the entire class and we have worked every week to figure out what was going on with us and our process as far as being artists and how this process of artistic and creative discovery or recovery, as she says, was going to go. And we are now at week 12. This is the last week of the Artist's Way course. And what we decided to do is sort of do a little wrap-up episode. Yes, there are some questions to ask about this whole chapter, but really this is a time for us to really, air things out for ourselves. Like, where am I? Where did I start? What happened to me during these last 12 weeks? And where do I find myself now? And what's interesting about it to me is that can vary, right? One of the things that Cameron says throughout the entire book is that your inner artist is a child, and children can be the best of times and they can be the worst of times. So sometimes you're going to be up as an artist and sometimes you're going to be down as an artist, and that is okay. In fact, she says that it's par for the course. It's part of the life of being an artist. So without further ado, please allow me to welcome Alan Fessenden, Megan Vasilis, and Sergio Giovanni. Welcome, y'all.
Hey, Isolde.
Hey,
Hi,
we did it.
Isolde.
We made it. We're here.
I know, the last week, woohoo! So I am really grateful that you all, as you know, have taken this journey with me. It's been super fun, and also frustrating, and also exciting, and also sometimes really boring because you wake up in the morning and you're like, not morning pages again. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the process of creative recovery. And before we begin to talk about the last chapter, I'd kind of like to know a little bit about your week this week, your check-in. Did you get to do the morning pages? Did you do your artist state? And if not, what would you have done? Not what you should have done, but what might you have done if you didn't get to it? So, Alan, why don't we start with you?
Oh, okay. Exciting. I did my morning pages, and what's the question?
How was your week?
Check-in here?
Yeah, just the check-in. How was your week?
I'm starting off immediately with what's the question, so it's a good week.
Yeah, the question is basically, did you get to all your morning pages? What did you do for your artist date? And if you didn't get to your artist date, what might you have done? What would you have done if you'd had time for it?
I did all my morning pages. It's been a rough week. My second father passed away this weekend.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
My condolences.
Thank you. Anyway, my artist date was I took my dog to the vet, Thea, and then I just let her roam through the park. It's like an hour walk to take her to the vet, so she just pulled my arm off for an hour. And then, or actually resisted going, and then when we got there, she was great and awesome, and then I just let her wander through Prospect Park for like another hour afterwards and just followed her, letting her sort of take the lead kind of as much as I was willing to, except when she wanted to go like through the brambles too deep. But it was cool, and I just got to explore Prospect Park, and it was really nice. And that was my day. And I guess it's not solo since Thea was with me, but I'm trying to turn her not just into a crazy maker, but also a collaborator. So
I love it.
Sergio, how was your week? How was your morning pages? And did you do an artist date? And what would you have done if you could have done it? If you
Thank
didn't
you, Alan. I just want to say first and foremost that Thea and Prospect Park sound like the perfect combo for an artist date. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. And yeah, congrats to being in the final week of the Artist Way, everyone. So this past week was another appreciate the yay. This was another busy week for me. The Multiverse Odyssey finally uploaded a 60-second short of us visiting Fort Tryon Park, and we shot 2 other videos that we're editing this week coming up. So that should be later in April. We'll have some more full-length videos finally up. And I also had another band practice, which went really well. I'm really excited about a few of the songs that we're starting to create or to build.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting. To be honest, I'm not sure if I can take on another thing. Just so much is going on. Speaking of so much is going on, I did have that conversation with Ben, the owner of comicbookinvest.com, CBSI. And yeah, I got some really great news. Turns out I'm going to get a bi-weekly gig there, which should be starting in a few weeks. Starting to write my first article. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. Dreams do come true. Just because I'm such a fan of comic books. So yeah, that would be great to looking forward to doing that. And yeah, it's just, I'm sorry to be long-winded about my week, but I haven't talked about this much during this process, and that's my advocacy that I do. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to the Humane League, which advocates to end the abuse of animals raised for food. I've been an active volunteer for a while now, and just looking at the statistics of changes made over the past decade in that regard is really amazing and rewarding, and I'm glad to be a part of that. And so they have a writing collective that's starting in June, which is a 3-month course, which hopefully will teach you how to write for advocacy and get published. And I'm on the list for that writing collective. So yeah, there's so much happening, and that's not even all of it. There's more stuff planned, including with the crew here tonight, that's going to be coming up in the next coming months. And I say all this to say I wonder how much the Artist Way assisted in the current abundance of opportunities that's currently happening. And yeah, it's really exciting time and a really exciting way to end this process, I think, with all these things coming up for me. As far as morning pages go, I did all 7 days of my morning pages. My second notebook thank you.
Yay.
The second notebook that I started a few weeks ago is a bit smaller than the first, so it was a bit less writing, if I'm being honest. But I am grateful for my time with the morning pages, and moving forward, I'll try and do possibly 1 day a week of morning pages. My artist date, I wanted to do something special for my last one, but not really my last one, because I plan on continuing my artist dates since it's something I feel like I've already done a bunch. And so yeah, I've gone to a few museums recently over the past couple months, and recently I went to the Bronx Museum of Art, which was great. I highly recommend it. Museums are one of my favorite activities, just things to do, and I can't wait to go to more and explore more. And I'm sorry, felt like I was talking for forever. Megan, how was your week? Did you get to do an artist date? How are your morning pages?
Congratulations, first of all, for getting that fabulous gig. I cannot wait to read more of your writing. It's so exciting. Very, very well-deserved opportunity.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. For me, I did so on morning pages. I only managed it 4 days this week, but it's a busy week, and I'm not always going to be this busy. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a pass on that for now.
4 days is
for
a good
my
number.
artist date, yeah, I mean, it's better than 0 days, right?
Exactly.
But
For sure.
And for my artist day, I had this whole plan. I was going to go to see the Macy's Flower Show because I've never actually seen it, because for various pandemic reasons, for all the few years I've lived in New York, I've always never actually been in the city during the spring. So I really wanted to see that, but then I wasn't really feeling great on that day, so I decided, I will just save it for a day when I feel better. And instead, I ended up walking through Central Park. Not with a cute dog like Thea, sadly, but I saw so many blooming trees, and I got to do kind of a photo walk, just documenting the things I saw.
That's awesome.
And it was just a really, really peaceful, beautiful time that I think I would have completely missed out on if I had tried to plan for it, because it was really just kind of random. I just thought, not feeling up to going so far away from my place, but Central Park is right there. So yeah, it was really good. I mean, challenging week, but definitely could have been worse. How about you, Isolde?
Me. Yes, me. Well, first of all, I want to say a couple of things. Alan, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's awful. And I send you all the healing and all the good thoughts and condolences.
Thank you, Isolde.
Sergio. Oh, yeah. No, it's awful, but I'm amazed you're here, actually. Sergio, I am so psyched for you that you got this gig. So congratulations. Awesome. And Megan, I totally understand. You do what you do when you do it. And then when life gets in the way of art, as my Aikido sensei says, you got to do life first. So I completely understand. For me, I did my morning pages every day. I think I'm a little exhausted right now, so I have very little. I have very little memory anymore. My short-term memory has gone, so I don't remember. But I do believe I did all 4 days. Good, all 7 days. As far as my artist date, I would have done. I did sort of a partial artist date. I ended up going back to Madison Square Park because I love just going there. And then Rich and I finally went to one of my new favorite vegan restaurants. We went to Coletta, which is Chef Guy Vacnan's vegan place, the new Italian vegan place on the east side. And I walked sort of a circuitous route to get there, and just looked at the architecture and enjoyed the buildings, and sort of peeped into windows to see what was there. One of the things that I'm treating as my artist date, or as a partial artist date, is my art journey, where I'm doing the art piece every single day. So that's sort of part of it, as I want to delve deeper into that. And like you, Sergio, museums are some of my favorite places. So I want to actually, I want to go to the Guggenheim. The fact that I haven't been there yet since I moved here is crazy.
That's one of the museums I went to recently. It's pretty nice. I would love to go back.
I love the Guggenheim. Yeah. And well, I'm saying we can do an artist date where we all go there, but we all separate and go our own separate ways, and then come back and have lunch at a vegan place or something. But
that sounds perfect.
Yeah, let's do it. I think that'll be really fun. And the last thing the big accomplishment for the week is I finished my part of taxes. So that's extremely exciting for me, because it's always the bane. Every year it's the bane of my existence. So that's it, really. That's my life in a nutshell for the last week. Let's switch gears a little bit and actually talk about The Artist's Way. She called this week's chapter Recovering a Sense of Faith. And Cameron says that creativity requires a sense of faith. And before we get into any of the God stuff, because that's not really what I want to talk about, I just want to ask you all what you think the faith is in. When she says creativity requires a sense of faith, setting aside any God stuff, what else might you need to have faith in to be creative? Alan, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my thoughts on that are, you got to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that can be hard. And this is why I think faith is important in some way. And what else can you believe in? Is just the universe, or what's it called? Synchronicity?
Synchronicity, yeah.
Just humanity is a tougher one. But I think just maybe synchronicity or the flow, because I think the reason I feel like you need to believe in yourself, and that's what faith is to me a lot is believing in yourself, and then knowing that I think when that's too much, when you're like can't believe in yourself because you're just distraught or pissed or whatever or frustrated, then it's nice to think that someone else has your back, and if that someone is just the universe, that's okay. Sergio or Megan, what do you guys think?
Megan, how about you take it away first?
Well, I do think that for me, this idea comes back to trusting in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that some doubt is healthy, because people who have no doubt in themselves whatsoever, you usually are sociopaths. Like that's not totally the greatest quality to have. But I think a huge part of this process for me has been facing up to how much I really do doubt myself and how much that stands in my way in terms of doing the things I actually want to do. So for me, the faith she's talking about in this chapter is the faith that I can let the creativity out. I can play with words. I can trust that even if I don't see exactly where a project is going to end up, I can still spend time on it. It's worthy of my time. It's worthy of letting it grow in the darkness, like she talks about. That really resonated with me, because so often I'm someone to get started on a project and then I'll sort of rip it out by the roots, which is another great metaphor she uses there. And be like, well, it's not perfect yet. Like it's not where it's supposed to be at this stage. I'm not finding my own process as long as I'm imposing some external idea of what the process should be onto it. So I think for me, the idea of faith is the idea that process is there for me to find, the process that works for me, and that to find it, I need to trust that it's there and let myself just play a little bit and relax. How about you, Sergio?
Yeah, that sounds like I relate a lot to what you just said. And yeah, for me, like Isolde mentioned, creativity requires faith, right? And trust, like Megan was just talking about. And I like that Ms. Cameron says we aren't meant to be dutiful and then die. We are meant to be bountiful and live. I really like that. That resonated with me. And she also says that once we commit to being our true selves and follow our dreams, that it'll trigger the support of the universe, like Alan was mentioning. And it's hard for me to really contest that. I think with everything that's happened and continues to happen, like all the opportunities I was just mentioning before, since especially since I've changed my working dynamic this past year to pursue the things I'm passionate about. And to do that, I had to trust myself a bit. I had to have faith in myself, and faith is really important to me. And as I progress, I'm learning to trust my capabilities more. So, that's how I feel. Isolde, how about you?
I love what you all said. Yeah, I think that so much of this is, again, believing in yourself. And for me, it's believing that you're entitled to it, which I think is hard sometimes, that you deserve to be creative, that you're entitled to a life of creativity and bounty and abundance and inspiration, and that zing, that sizzle that makes you want to make something out of nothing. And so for me, for a long time, of course, I wasn't allowed in my family dynamic. I wasn't allowed to be creative in the way I wanted to be. So standing up for myself and going, no, I'm going to be creative in the way I want to be, was very important. And I think anybody who feels like they don't have the right, you have the right? If you're listening to this, that's something to really keep in mind. You have the right to be creative. You have the right to pursue the things that make you excited and inspired. And so much of what she talks about in the chapter, I agree with, right? She quotes Joseph Campbell, and he's my guy, right? I love Joseph Campbell. The Power of Myth is one of my favorite things ever. And she says that, she quotes him and he says, follow your bliss and doors will open where there were no doors before. And so much of that synchronicity that you mentioned, Alan, is like that, right? It's things that come together and that align that you just didn't think was even possible. And all of a sudden there it is in front of you, and it's like a banquet and you get to choose what to take. And so for me, that's how I approach it all is the more I am myself, the more I am creative, the more opportunities and chances and choices present themselves to me. And I think all of us, and it's not just the four of us that I'm talking about here, all of us have that possibility. And yet, to move on a little bit, being true to yourself is important, but it can also be super scary, right? So I guess the question I have is, what would it look like if you feel like you're being true to yourself now? Say that. But if you're not, if you don't, what do you think it would look like to be true to yourself? Who would you be, and what would you be doing if you were truly true to yourself? Sergio, why don't you start?
Sure. I feel that that's who I am at the moment. I feel like I am being true to myself and who I am. Mindfulness is a very important thing to me, and also just doing the things I'm passionate about, not just creatively. Like I mentioned, the advocacy as from earlier. I like to try and spread awareness or help spreading awareness on lots of things. And I think that, if anything, this past year, I've been my truest self that I've ever been. And what does that mean? Who is that? That's somebody who is creative and appreciates having this creative energy and is pursuing that and wants to help others pursue that, but also help the world be a better place, as cheesy as that sounds. I know this isn't a Miss America contest. I feel like that's an answer for that. But yeah, that's true. I really do feel that way, and I feel like I've made strides in this past year in that regard. And I hope that answers your question, Isolde. Megan, how about you?
It does.
I'm sorry, Megan, how about you?
Sorry, can you hear me? Oh, okay. What was the question? I'm sorry.
The question is basically, if you feel like you are being true to yourself right now, that's great and yay. But if you feel like you could be more true to yourself, what would it look like if you were being true to who you are?
Okay. Sorry about that. So I think that being true to myself means trusting that, finding that truth, because I really don't know what it is yet. That that I don't need to have it figured out 10 years in advance of every single step. I think that's where I get in my own way most. I always feel like I need to have not just a plan, but like a 12-step document, a spreadsheet. I have to have some kind of rigid list of steps in order to get from point A to point B. When really that shuts me off from so many possibilities that I'm not even able to see from the limited place I'm starting from. So to me, being true to myself means being open to those possibilities, letting that process flow a little bit more. And that's been really, really difficult for me for most of my life, really. But through this process, that is something I've started to realize about myself, that I have this trait, which in some ways can serve me, but in a lot of ways it really does stand in the way of me reaching the goals I really do want to reach. And it prevents me from doing creative work at the level that I really want to do it at. And it's something I really do need to get past before I can move to that next level. And that's been one of the points of frustration really for me in these last few weeks, because I feel like I'm getting to the point now where I can see that it's a problem, and I'm starting to find ways to, I guess, get around that tendency in my brain to want to do that, but I haven't figured it out entirely yet. Like, I'm still seeing myself falling into those patterns, and I can see that it's still limiting me. So it's definitely a battle I still have to fight, I think. How about you?
I just wanted to say that I
Sergio
think
next?
that it's monumental that you're self-aware of that, though, and that you're able to start making these changes. I think that's really great. I'm sorry to interject. Alan, how are you feeling about being true to yourself?
Thanks, Sergio. Thanks, Megan. I'm sort of, I think, in Megan's camp here. I'm a little bit feeling like, oh, geez, I don't know. The battle continues, and I don't know. I think I've always sort of thought of myself as some sort of healer, and I was thinking about that today, and I don't know what that means, or I'm not sure. I feel sort of, exposed saying that because I haven't always been a healer. It's not like we are always 100% one thing.
For sure.
And I think I've just always, like, the way I've approached comedy as I've spent time doing that and my writing is, like, I'm trying to figure out a way to somehow make things better. And my approach to comedy is that it should be a progressive art form in which we learn from our past and we develop new things that are funny rather than kicking dead horses just so that we can have jokes. And so I think I've used comedy as sort of a way to heal. I think people do that. But I also know that comedy can be a way to hide. And I've definitely probably done that too. So I don't know who I would be if I was my true self. Because I do feel a bit lost right now, in fact. And that's hard.
I'm sorry to hear that, but you do heal with your humor. You put a smile on my face.
What?
You do heal with your humor. You put a smile on my face every time we chat. So I appreciate you for that.
Oh, thank you.
I think
Yeah, go on.
in hearing what you're saying, Alan, I think it's always weird to feel that loss because you're kind of going, well, what the fuck? I thought I knew myself. I thought I had space. I thought I had a space, and all of a sudden it feels like the rug's been pulled out from under you, and you're going, I'm in free fall, and I didn't ask for this. So, and it sucks. It just sucks, right, when you're in that space. So I know exactly what you're feeling, and I'm standing right there with you, going, it freaking sucks. Because it just does. Because you would like to know more about yourself than you do, and you'd like to have more direction. I don't mean you personally. I mean in general. And you'd like to feel whole, I think, and that's a hard part. That's a really hard part for people who are creative, because part of it for us, I think, is that we're always reaching for something that is out of grasp because it doesn't exist yet, because we're the ones who are meant to create it. So I understand as much as I can, because obviously I'm not you, but I do want to tell you that I completely, as much as
absolutely.
I can, understand
part of me
where
feels
you're
like
coming
I
from.
just tore the house apart and pulled everything out, and now I have to, I'm sitting in that space before I reorganize everything. So I'm not in dire straits, but I just do feel like, wow, I wish I was Sergio right now.
Oh no, I wouldn't go that far.
We
I
all
wouldn't
wish
go
we
that
were
far.
Sergio right now.
Thank you, though.
But what about you, Isolde?
I appreciate you saying that, Alan. I do, because there is that feeling. And I guess for me, it's a tough question, because there are some ways in which I'm being very true to myself, and there are some ways which I'm not. And some of it is real world crap gets in the way. And the real world crap is, upstairs neighbors who are insane, that sort of thing. But also just that whole, I don't like using the word adult as a verb, so I'm not going to, or a gerund. But I will say, when you want, if what you want is to be an artist, and your artist is a child, as according to Cameron, but you still have all of these grown-up responsibilities and ways you're, I guess, supposed to think or do or act or whatever, it can be really incongruous. The one can be really incongruous with the other, and they can butt heads like crazy. And so I don't want to go, I'm just going to throw my hands up and go, the universe will take care of it, because the universe has not shown me that it will take care of paying my rent when I need the rent paid. I have to pay my rent, right? So that's the thing, is like real world stuff, I think, gets in the way of me being true to myself, even if when I'm true to myself, I'm true to myself. And I paraphrase Flaubert's famous saying, and my version of it is, be neat and orderly in your life so that you can be wild and original in your work. And by work, I mean art. And I love that notion. I just don't always have the energy, the time, or the resources to do it. So that's what keeps me from being as true to myself as I could be, and it can really suck. I'll just say it that way. Let us move on, though, because otherwise we'll be here all day, and we want to talk more about other stuff. So let's talk about the sense of mystery. Cameron says creativity begins in darkness, and the seed in its shell, this is me saying it, it's got to struggle a lot in order to break through and reach towards the sun. And so there is this crucible feeling, and I've mentioned this before on the show, is that to me, some of this is about being in a crucible until you get so bothered, so hot, so uncomfortable that you have to break free. And in order to do that, we have to go through this long, dark night of the soul. You know, the seed in the shell gets incredibly uncomfortable before it breaks through that shell. And the shell is usually tough for a reason, to protect the seed while it's germinating and to show that the seed is strong enough to survive by breaking through that hard shell. What are your thoughts about this, about the sense of mystery in creativity and in art? Megan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I felt a little called out by this part of the chapter because I think that really nails down a huge part of what my problem is. Like what I was talking about before, really, that mystery is very hard for me to deal with. I know it's there for me because when I allow it to happen, that's when my best work really starts to show up. But not knowing where I'm going to end up, that really scares me because there's no way I can quantify that. You know, there's no way to guarantee that, you know, this project will sell someday, that even one person will read this and enjoy it, that any of the things I might want out of my creative work in the long term will happen with this project, or even that I'll be satisfied with it. You know, I might not be. And dealing with that sense of mystery is really, really hard. I think it's the hardest thing I have to face down if I'm really going to make all of this work. And I think I tell myself every day that I'm doing the work to move past those blocks, that I see the blocks and I can get past them. But I'm still afraid, I think, deep down that it will always be there and it will always prevent me from getting to where I really could be, you know? Just because I'm afraid of that mystery. How about you, Ellen?
Damn, Megan, that's I'm sorry that you feel that. I mean, I feel simpatico with that feeling. It's scary, like these blocks won't go away, but I think we're gonna start addressing them, and we're acknowledging them, and that's gonna help us deal with them, rather than just sort of not talking about them. Maybe. I don't know. I thought this was interesting. I thought this section was like sort of the opposite side of the trusting exercise, or part of it is like she ends that section with like, then do something, or maybe there's someone else where it's like, just do something. And like the mystery section is all about, don't do anything, just trust, let it, it's gonna come, if I'm getting that right. And so with the mystery, but I do feel like it's a good way to think about things. Like you can't sort of rush that artistic creation, and I definitely like the idea of sitting around and creatively pursuing it in my mind without having to be at the page or wherever. And I think there is something to say, like, that you just are always, your subconscious is always working on things, and if you don't force it, then you allow that space for it to blossom and to dream, I guess, like, right? Like you process things in your dreams, and maybe this is where we get the sort of concept of dreaming. It's like, oh yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. The concept of dreaming is based on your dreams. Yeah. So smart.
But that's true though. I mean, isn't that don't different Aboriginal peoples in Australia believe that dream walking is real, that your dream life is just as real. It just happens to be on the other side of sleep. I mean, I agree with you completely that is part of it. And maybe the connection points between that dream life and your conscious waking life are where those sparks of inspiration and innovation and creativity are born. Why not? Nobody else has a better explanation than you just gave, actually, so why not?
I mean, your mind is tuning in towards something, right? And so, like, if we're getting those signals, then it's, like, cool to tune into it. And then it's, like, information, right? Like, oh, I have been thinking about this on another level, or I am considering this, and this is how it could be. This is the possibility of, or this is the reality of. You get to play out that reality sort of in the dream sphere, I suppose, and see if you like it. Try it on for size. But I do like this sort of gestation period of the artist and letting things sit and be idle. And I think, like, it doesn't mean you don't have to do anything, but, like, maybe you can turn your attention to something else or let yourself work on something else while you're gestating here and there, or consider other options. And, like, do the artist day in the morning pages. It's all just, like, generating ideas, information. Like, what I take from the artist day, it's really going out and observing other art, observing people, observing the world at large, and taking that in. And when, we were improvising, it was important to tell young improvisers to go read other stuff, go live a life, go do other stuff so you have something to bring to the stage when you show up with nothing else but you. And I think that's sort of an important lesson for all artists, is just, like, continue to live a life outside of just making one thing. That's so I'll end it there, and I'll pass it over to Sergio. What do you think about this mystery, Sergio? Can you solve it, Scooby-Doo?
I am a fan of Scooby-Doo, but I'm going to need a few Scooby snacks if I'm going to try and tackle this one.
I love the concept of Scooby snacks.
Yeah, Shaggy, Scooby. No, I actually am a big fan of Scooby-Doo. But I don't want to digress too much because that's a whole nother podcast in itself. Zoinks, am I right? So I really like that you talked about tuning in to the frequency, essentially, right? Miss Cameron talks a lot about that, and that was kind of my takeaway from some of what Alan was just saying. And I agree that not just other art, but life in itself is what influences our creations, right? And what we create. And that's really important. And also acknowledging and being aware of whatever is blocking you, I think is very important too. So Megan and Alan, I think that's great that you're able to be self-aware of that, and anybody else who's been going along with this, if you're able to start to be more self-aware. Maybe it's you haven't changed those patterns yet, but to be aware of them is definitely vital, in my opinion. So keep on keeping on. As far as
keep on keeping on.
As far as how I feel, she says that. See, for me, what stood out in this segment is where she says that we shouldn't force our work and creative process, right? Which Alan and Megan have talked about some, and to let it come out in droplets, she puts it, which I feel for me is an issue I already have, where I tend to only like to be creative or write creatively when the mood strikes, when I feel it hit me. But sometimes if I'm only writing in that capacity, it can take ages to finish something. And I was hoping to get better with writing, even when I don't necessarily feel like it. So I definitely get what she's saying about this, or what she's trying to say, but yeah, it was a little bit conflicting for me. Because I felt like maybe that lended to the procrastination, so I was trying to get better with telling myself, even if I don't feel it, just go for it. Obviously, I wouldn't do that all the time, but yeah, just a bit conflicting. How do you feel about this, Isolde?
I'm in a completely different camp. I have to admit. Sometimes you have to try the wild, crazy, ridiculous thing especially when you feel like you need to be the most still, or like something and feeling like you need to be still, I will break away from that. When I feel the most scared is when I will go, well, screw that, and I'll go running naked in the streets, right? And I have done that. But I remember one time we were having a party, and we were supposed to have an outdoor party. And of course, the skies opened up and the rain came down and everyone sort of huddled in the house. And I went, well, screw that. And I went out and I danced in the rain. And my friends Sandra and Kirk came. They were walking from the metro, this back in DC. And they were walking from the metro and they saw me dancing in the rain. Everybody else is inside. And I'm like having a great time just dancing in the raindrops. And Sandra's like, of course you would be the person who's out here dancing in the rain while everyone else is in the house and dry. And I'm like, yeah, because you have to take this stuff. It has to be with a sense of humor. It has to be with a sense of play. And so I believe gestation can be good, but I also believe that there comes a point where gestation turns into procrastination. And I would much rather push through that hard shell if I'm the seed and reach to the sun, even if it's a little too early, or not do it at all. And in fact, another story, and this is to me a tragic one, there was a butterfly exhibit at a nature center, and they had all sorts of little cocoons, and they were waiting for these butterflies to pop out of the cocoons, and you could watch them be born, right? They were going to repopulate, blah blah blah, and you could watch the butterflies be born as they push their way out of the cocoon. And one was struggling really hard to get out of the cocoon and just not able to. And I said, hey, there's one struggling. And the woman walked over to me, the ranger walked over to me with tears in her eyes, and she said, I know. And I said, well, why don't you, go and snip the cocoon a little so the butterfly can get out? And she goes, because even if I do, that butterfly is not a viable butterfly. The way you know a butterfly is viable, that the butterfly will live, the butterfly will fly, the butterfly is well formed, is by nature letting it do its thing. And if it can get out of the cocoon, then it's going to thrive. And if it can't, then it might not. And it probably won't. And I just started crying. I was like, no, that's crazy. We have to. And she said no. And because I insisted, they ended up, snipping. And the poor thing had only one wing that had formed. And so there was a reason why it couldn't get out of the cocoon. I know. And it was just awful. And at the same time, I was like, yeah, this is nature. This is what happens. And we're part of that. We're not outside of nature. So we have the ability to think, and we have the ability to reason. We have the ability to try, even when you think, oh, there's no way. Yes, there is a way. If not a door, open the window. That's kind of how I feel about it. So I will, if I'm too tired, I won't do it. But otherwise, I'm gonna sit down or get up or get in front of the mic or do something, because this is it. This is my life, right? We have one life. And if I'm not going to tell my story, who is? If I'm not going to sing this song, who is? If I'm not going to write that book, who is? So I believe, do it. Even if it sucks. It's okay to suck. It is perfectly okay to suck. In fact, suck is the first step to great. Why not? Not everybody's going to be great when they first start. So that's kind of where I am about it. I don't feel like I wait for the flash of inspiration. I send the request back to Edna, the librarian who lives in my head, and say, hey, I need ideas. And then I'll either journal or draw or take a nap. And by the time I'm ready, within that half hour or whatever, something will have struck. And if nothing strikes, then I ask myself a very good question. If I were someone who knew what to do right now, what would I do? And then I answer the question. And that answer is usually the first step to creating whatever it is I want to create. So that's my answer on that.
Can I just jump in there?
Let us move on, though. Yeah,
because I think
sure,
you
of course.
opened it with sort of starting off with something really cool, which is like you said, you go out and run naked in the rain or whatever. And that to me is exactly not, it's neither procrastination nor is it forcing something. It's changing gears and giving yourself space to go, la, 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 and then come back and be like, all right, now what do I got? Shaking it around a little bit. And I don't see you as being someone who's like the well is dry too often, but it sounds so. It sounds like that you've sort of opened that flow and you've tapped into it. And I think where that just that idea of just like doing something different or doing something, giving yourself that space is
Mhm.
pretty important. And for me as an artist, if I'm supposed to be doing one thing, like literally today, all I could think of was this podcast, and I still wasn't able to get everything ready in time, and I felt like crazy. But like that's my thing for the day, and I mean, I have, other stuff, but that's like my main focus. And like, I need to like figure out how to just go out and do something else for a little bit so I can shake myself free of just thinking about this one thing all day or whatever. And
Yeah, it's
no,
interesting.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, I
think
thought you were
was just
finished. Go
gonna
ahead.
Meander a little longer, but go.
But it's not meandering. I mean, there is a lot of truth to what you're saying, I think. What I encourage my clients to do is literally physically change their location.
Yeah.
Right? If you're sitting down when you're stuck, stand up. If you're standing, lie down or sit down or dance or do something that will change
like
your
the same
perspective,
instructions
because
you give for
sometimes
mushrooms.
that's all you need. Yes. No,
Change your-
seriously. Always have a tour guide and change your
Change your
perspective.
my-
Totally. Yeah, I mean,
My
that's it.
takeaway
Yes,
is
Sergio, go ahead.
that if the well is ever dry, just go outside and enjoy the rain.
Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely. Refill the well. That was beautiful. Exactly. So yeah, and so this is me saying it to you. If you're listening to this, remember that even if you feel like I have no ideas, even a little bit of change of perspective can give you all the ideas in the world. It can unlock everything. It can lock certain doors that you need locked, and it can unlock certain doors you need unlocked. Bear that in mind. One of the things that she says, though, is that the creative process is a process of surrender, not control. And I know that I would like to talk about it, but I also know that I just want to ask you, if you can, just a one sentence reply to that question, because we could talk about this all day, but instead, let's take a second and go, what would my one sentence reply be to whether or not the creative process is a process of surrender, not control? And I'll go first because I'm putting you all on the spot. My one sentence answer to that would be that art needs a crucible. There you go. That's my one answer. Megan, what is your one sentence answer to that question?
I think mine would be art requires trust.
All right. Sergio?
I would say surrender to your creative energies, control the process.
Awesome. Alan, what are your thoughts? What is your thought, I should say, because it's a one sentence answer.
I would say art requires freedom.
All right. So now here's our mission. Take that sentence and put it up above your bed somehow, and remember to look at it every night before you go to sleep, every morning when you wake up. And if you're listening to this, whichever sentence strikes you of the four of us or one of your own, go ahead and put that up over your bed and see how you feel looking at it every day. All righty, moving on. The imagination at play. So, yeah, let's talk about this. She says that art needs festivity and humor. And then she also says that the experience of creative living argues that hobbies are, in fact, essential to joyful life. So I think, yeah, hobbies can lead to artistic creative breakthroughs. But I wanted to ask you all, what is the value of your hobbies to you with respect to your creativity and art? How do you differentiate between a hobby and your art, if you do? Sergio, why don't we
Sure.
start with you?
Excuse me. Yeah, I really like how she says that hobbies are in fact essential to the joyful life, and I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. I have so many hobbies, and they're honestly really rewarding for me. And you know how some people would hate to be stuck inside all day, post-COVID? You know, they'll be like, oh, what am I going to do all day inside? I have nothing to do. Well, that's not me. I'm the opposite of that. If I'm inside all day, I'll have like a list of things that I'm going to do, right? So I'm going to read this, I'm going to play that, listen to this, write that, watch this, and so on and so on. And I feel that it really does help cultivate and fuel my creativity. And I love that she says we must get serious about taking ourselves lightly. I really love that. And the end of this segment of the Imagination at Play segment in regards to recognizing your creative side and taking initiative with play and your imagination, that you're either losing your mind or gaining your soul, and that life is meant to be an artist state. That's why we're created. That really resonates with me, and in my opinion, that's probably going to be one of the more monumental takeaways from this course for me. Megan, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, for me, this has also been a pretty powerful thing I've really gained through going through this process, because I've always had creative hobbies that I don't see as related to my core work, and because I have them, I can almost access that place of freedom and trust in a way, because I don't have the same expectation piled on top of that. You know, as much as I love to write, as much as I consider that, you know, a huge part of me, there's so much expectation layered on top of that. That's really a battle I have to fight whenever I sit down at the page. And it's not that way with other forms of art that I do, because I don't have that same expectation. I don't expect myself to be amazing at drawing or painting with my fingers or crafting. Like crafting is really a thing I'm really getting more into now, because it's something I've kind of let myself embrace, because I don't have that same expectation that I'm going to try every single new craft and immediately be great at it. I mean, I make terrible. I bought like a little online class, like a tutorial on how to make like paper flowers, because I thought, you know, I love flowers, but it really depresses me to have them in my apartment, because, you know, they're dying as soon as you have them, and that just is never not going to make me sad. And I can't deal with that, but I wanted to bring something festive and floral into my space for spring. So I bought this little tutorial of making paper flowers, and they're awful. They are so bad. But I'm having so much fun learning this new process, and it's That's fun awesome. Because I can be creative in this really this sort of free way. Yeah, it's a kind of freedom that I haven't really allowed myself in a while, and I think it's a doorway into a way that I can maybe move past some of my blocks if I can find other ways to use my hobbies, use other things I enjoy to access that creativity, to sort of get used to that feeling again, so that when I go into my writing, it's not so difficult, I guess. How about you, Alan?
Oh, I don't know. What is the question's about hobbies, right?
Yeah, basically it's what is the value of humor and festivity and also your hobbies with respect to your creativity? If you have any hobbies, how do they align or apply to your art and to your creativity? And also, if you do, how do you differentiate between a hobby and your art?
Yeah, so I did improv for like 12 years, which is also considered a hobby, but it wasn't my hobby. But it was not always what I did for work, so but it was like a passion. And otherwise, I don't know that I have any hobbies. I think I try things. I've tried painting. I've tried. I used to skate, and now I don't really skate. It's so frustrating to me because I'm like, I just. I wish there was something like I just wanted to do on other times, but I just don't. I always think of this lyric. I sort of got distracted trying to look it up, but it's from They Might Be Giants' song Dead. And there's a part where it says, now it's over, I'm dead, and I haven't done anything that I want. Or I'm still alive, and there's nothing I want to do. And I always resonate with that lyric, because I'm just like, damn, I don't know. I don't want to do anything. I like doing stuff. I like going places. I like being invited places. But I just sort of sit in this place of, I just want to do nothing. Maybe I'm in a bad place. No. So I don't know. I think it's good to have hobbies. I think like I had a client recently, and she's like, I don't have any hobbies. I don't knit. I don't do anything. And she's, a little older than me, and it's a weird spot to be in. It's just like, what do we do?
What about those comics? How are those comics treating you from a few months back? Stray Dogs? Did you get through it?
I had to take a break from Stray Dogs. It's so dark.
It is, but it's so light too.
I know. I gotta get back into it. I tried to read it the other day, and it just didn't open itself for some reason. And I think I would like to get back into comics. I used to like comics and
skating. I used to.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's good to have hobbies. It's good to have other things to do. Thank God I have Thea, because she gets me out of the house to walk her, and to like.
If you ever want to go skating one
her.
day, man, I used to skateboard. I still have my skateboard. Put on the skates. I'll bring my board out.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to. I'm just afraid of being broken now. I'm like,
oh no, you'll be fine, man.
Oh, I'm gonna be tired after I like kick down the road. I'd go like a foot, and I'm like, oof. How did I do this? Multiple kicks? This sucks.
One road will lead to two. Exactly.
You start slowly. You start slowly.
No, I know. It's good. I just like, I think it's good to have those things, and I wish I had more of them. But I can't really relate to having them. And I'll go back to you, Isolde, I think, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I think as much as I was talking earlier about wanting to burst through like a seed breaking through the shell, sometimes it's winter and sometimes it's not time yet. Sometimes what you need to do is cocoon for a while before so that you can develop both wings. I mean, that's so much of this is artists are called upon to know so much about themselves, like in order to really make your art, you need to go really deep inside yourself and find all of the yucky and messy stuff as well as all of the brilliant and shining stuff. So that can take a little time, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If that's where you are, whether or not you're me or Alan or Megan or Sergio, or you're listening to this, if what you need is a little time to just be inside yourself and to sort of and to cocoon essentially, then why not take it? If you've got the opportunity, hell, take the opportunity. Because I approach this from a slightly different perspective in that. One, my limit, my forever limit is the fact that I have hypothyroidism, and my energy level, once it goes, it's very hard to get back. So even though the spirit is definitely willing and the body is like, oh no, you overdid it and now you're going to crash. And so there's not much I can do about that. But having said that, I think that the other side of this coin is that I took all of my hobbies, all of the things that I love to do, and I made them what I do for money, right? So I'm a singer and a guitarist and a violinist, and I was a professional musician for, I don't know, from 2003 to 2012 or something like that, 9 years, gigging and touring and teaching and all this stuff, and it's exhausting. I love music, and it's my favorite thing to do, and it's exhausting. And I started writing for fun. I didn't start writing to set out to write a book, but then it happened, and I've written 6 or actually 7 books now. So I turned that into something that I do for money. I've been reading tarot since I was very, very young. Started reading it professionally when I was in my very early 20s, so a very long time. And turned that hobby that I did for my friends in high school into something where I've gone to places like, the White House and read at their Halloween party. And so that was another hobby. Thanks. Yeah, the Obama 2015 Obama Amazing. Halloween party. I was there. If you remember the Obamas being totally wowed by the little kid in the Pope Mobile, I was there. I saw that little kid in the Pope Mobile live. But anyway, yeah, and I got to sing Endless Love with the Marine Jazz Band, which was also fun because I was sitting kind of close to them in the little area where all the performers were. But anyway, so the thing is, when you turn your hobbies into what you do for money, they change. And so I had to come up with a different hobby that was not one of the things I do for money, which is the painting a day project. And here's the thing. Now people have bought those prints. So now I've turned this total hobby into yet another thing that I'm doing for money. And there's a delicate balance there, because then it becomes something you have to do instead of something you get to do. And I want to always keep my art and creativity in the get column rather than in the have to column. So that's my thought on that. Okay, let us move on. La la la. Oh, yeah. So she says, it is a paradox of creative recovery that we must get serious about taking ourselves lightly. And I'm wondering if you think that's true. And what, if you do think it's true, what steps might you take to take yourself less seriously? Sergio, why don't we start with you? What steps might you take to take yourself less seriously?
Sure, I think that might be difficult and can be difficult for a lot of people. And for me, it's become something that's much easier to do. And I'll say that first and foremost, I'm a pretty big fan of just having just having a sense of humor and joking, being sarcastic and stuff like that. So just growing up, I would make a lot of jokes and have friends that, we'd make fun of each other. Sometimes it was appropriate, sometimes it was in poor taste, but, that's how it is when you're younger. And I think that's allowed me to be able to take myself a little more lightly. But I think growing up and having certain insecurities can halt that. And so part of it is becoming more aware of your flaws, and not just your flaws, but your strengths as well, and becoming more present and grateful. I think gratuity is a big thing for the things that you have experienced and the things that you can experience and will experience. And for me, I think that's allowed myself to be able to take myself more lightly, because I can mention or acknowledge something about myself. I was just joking with a friend earlier, one of my good friends, shout out Courtney, and I made a joke, and it was a really stupid joke, nothing offensive or anything, just maybe like a dad joke or something. And I immediately regretted it, and I acknowledged it. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I made that joke. And he mentioned how it's cool that you can acknowledge and be aware about certain times when you'll make a bad joke or say something. You're always like, acknowledging it before anybody else can. And I feel like that's one of the ways that I've been able to take myself more lightly. And as an artist, I think that can be important. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that, you have to be serious when it calls for it, of course. And I hope that wasn't rambling. I hope that made sense. Megan, how about you? Thank you.
It made sense.
Thank you for the confirmation. Megan, how about you? How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I think for me, a big part of my issue has always been taking myself too seriously, not knowing when to just enjoy the process, not just of writing, but of life. And through these 12 weeks that we've been working through the artist's way, that is something I've become a lot more aware of. And I think the artist dates for me have served the function of forcing me to take some time every single week to do that, in a way. There's been definitely some experimentation for me in the artist dates, like I haven't always chosen the same kind of activity, but to me the novelty is almost part of it. Like if I was doing exactly the same thing every week, then I would just be falling into that same rigid pattern, like part of the fun for me is getting to choose something new and different and sometimes unexpected, like this past week. And I think learning how to take myself less seriously is going to be like this long process of deprogramming, like it's not going to happen in 12 weeks. But I do feel really good about the fact that I've at least started that process, and I'm more aware of it now, aware of the ways in which it stops me from doing the things I really want to do. How about you, Alan?
Well, I just want to go back, Sergio. I like that you said it's good to acknowledge your flaws, or to know your flaws, but also your strengths. Because I was like, yeah, I definitely know my flaws. And then you said strengths, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like a balance. Like it's good to know both, or else you just sort of focus on this one thing.
For sure.
And when I think of seriousness, I think of the sort of like rigidity. I don't think I take myself too serious, and I could probably take myself more serious. But I think like by taking yourself a little less seriously, you give yourself room to grow. Like I'm sort of like almost seeing it as like a full or empty on seriousness. If you're all the way full at that serious side, you're like, well, I can't improve. I'm a serious person, and everything I do is with purpose, and there's no space to grow. And so, like, if someone makes a joke at your expense, and it's like, how dare they come from me? I'm a serious person.
How dare you?
A lot of jokes are just sort of like to sort of relax you, or to sort of inform what other people see about you, or how you're coming across. Sometimes, like, there can be, like, my family used to just always tease people who came in. We're very, like, and it's a lot. Like, I realize that now, it's a lot how people would come into our family dynamic, all five of us, and my two parents just sort of like, oh, what do you do? You're well, you got hair, and you got look at you, like, what do you do? You're in school? Great. Are you a serious person or why? Like, just tons of questions, and I didn't have any jokes in there, but like lots of like teasing, and it's such a part of the dynamic that it's like still there, and it feels a little weird sometimes. It's like, ooh, but it created this place where we just felt like comfortable, sort of playing with each other in that way. And if you get too serious, I don't think you don't leave yourself a lot of room to play, because you're trying to be accomplished or be something perfect, right? And that's like a tough place to be if you're not there now or whatever. So I like that idea of acknowledging your strengths along with your flaws and knowing yourself. And it definitely takes work to relax that seriousness, Megan, and we're here to help, obviously. And but I think you've come a huge way already, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Without,
Definitely.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like
We all have.
definitely, yeah. Me too. No, we have. Just yeah. I that's my feeling about it. I think it's just a place where it's like, yeah, you have to have some levity. You have to give yourself space. You have to like breathe into your existence and like enjoy it, because otherwise you're trying to be something specific, and we are ourselves a bit of flow, and we have to allow ourselves to flow so that we can let the flow through us. Is it back to Isolde? Are we there now?
I think so. Yeah. I think that I can absolutely see what all of you are saying, and I love the notion of acknowledging your sort of your strengths and your challenges, and taking yourself a little less seriously is probably good for people. For me, the hard part of that is, I go back a lot to when I was a kid, and there was not a lot of levity when I was a child growing up in the home that I was growing up in. So, because you were never sure what you said what kind of reaction it would have from my father. So I grew up a lot walking on eggshells. So how I am looking at taking myself less seriously is I chose a partner in life whose main job is to help me with that lesson. That's a lot of what Rich and I joke
Shout
all
out
the time
Rich.
that he's here.
Shout out Rich.
Shout out Rich. His job in our relationship. Yeah, I'll tell him to listen to the episode, because he's going to be like, oh, they shouted out for me. But yeah, his job in our relationship is to help me play more, and my job in our relationship is to help him be a little more serious, right? So hopefully together we balance each other out. And it's really good to have people who are foils, right? Rich and I are foils for each other in many different ways, but that's one of the ways we're foils for each other, is that we help each other balance those aspects, right? He could use to be a little bit more serious and a little bit more responsible. I could use to be a little more playful and a little less responsible. And I found a partner who really challenges me in that way. So one of the things that I recommend, if I may, is that if you need people. It's like I say to anybody who's going to be tripping acid or doing mushrooms or whatever, have a tour guide. Always have a tour guide. Always have a tour guide, right? Because you need someone who's going to be the tether if you're going to be the kite. And vice versa, right? If someone else needs to be the kite, then you can be the tether. And so I, to the three of you, for sure, I offer that to you. If you need to be the kite for a while, I'm happy to be the tether, and vice versa, I hope, because we all need a touchstone, right? So taking yourself lightly is fabulous, but you also need to be able to find your way back home. Both have to be true, and I think both can coexist. So them's my thoughts on that. Let us move on. And Sergio, my last quote for this section was, life is meant to be an artist state, and you've already said it, so there you go. But I do like the notion of that. No. I mean, you saved me some time. So yeah, life is meant to be an artist state. I invite you to take a look at that part of the book if you're listening to us as we chat, and see what she says about that. Because to me, once you've gone through the process and you've gone on a few artist states, you're going to be like, yeah, that would be really cool if life were an artist state. So let us move on to the next section, which is escape velocity. And to make a real difference in your life, she says you have to reach escape velocity. And escape velocity she gives a couple of examples, like you have a terrible job, you're just about to quit and reach escape velocity, and your boss offers you your first raise in 5 years. Or you're ready to marry that super cool, fabulous person who's going to treat you right, and the passionate jackhole from your past calls you up for no reason. So as you get closer to reaching escape velocity, basically you'll draw a test to you. And in Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, he talks about that right as you're about to reach that freedom, reach that escape velocity, that moment of seduction will happen, that something will try to seduce you away from that freedom right as it's about to happen, right as you're about to reach that escape velocity and really be free. So I wanted to ask you all, what is escape velocity to you? Have you reached it? And if you haven't, what do you think your escape velocity will be? Alan, what about you?
Have I reached escape velocity yet?
Yeah, what is it to you? What does it mean to you? Have you reached it? And if you haven't, what do you think? When do you think that will, what will it look like when you reach escape velocity?
Oh my God. I have no idea. Honestly,
that's a fair answer.
Think God, I think I'm behind it still or something. I don't know. I can't quite see it, or I'm not sure what it means or what I'm trying to escape necessarily. So yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm wondering, and I'll leave it to maybe Megan to give us a good answer. Megan?
Yeah, I think for me, I've had a really clear idea for a while of what escape velocity will look like. I know where I want to go, but finding the path to get there is where I tend to trip myself up, because I think because of my tendency to want to obsessively plan and overanalyze everything, really that's a protective instinct. I'm trying to figure it out ahead of time to the point where I can't possibly fail. And in recognizing that, I think I have to realize that for me, the things that are going to get in my way as I approach escape velocity will be, say I've chosen a path, and I think I do just need to pick something, and then move towards that goal and see where it takes me. And if it doesn't work, just be willing to jump to something else. That's really what it looks like. So I think for me, it will be like that next shiny thing, the thing that promises more room for planning, more room for analysis than what I had before. So I think in knowing that, just keeping that in mind might help me avoid those pitfalls in the future as I move towards those bigger goals. But yeah, this was kind of a hard section for me too, because I also, like Ellen, I don't think I'm quite there yet. I've always had that very clear picture of where I want to end up, but I'm still not exactly sure what path I'm going to take to get there. So, what are you thinking, Sergio?
Yeah, I think this is all a journey, right? We're all still on this journey. We're all a work in progress. And again, I'm sorry to get redundant, but I just want to reiterate that, yeah, being self-aware of these things is really important and will help in that progression. So I'm happy to hear that that's happening for everyone, it seems. And as far as escape velocity, right, she equates it to this test. It's kind of like a test that you have, right? And again, I apologize for the redundancies, but yeah, she says every time you're set out to do something or take an action you felt you needed to happen, something else comes up or transpires that stops you from taking said action and makes you question your choices, like a test. And it is difficult for me too, Alan and Megan, to try and think about this and to come up with examples of times that that's happened for me. And I'm not sure how often I've been through this test that she speaks about, or escape velocity, if that's something I've done to myself. But I do know that I don't surround myself with wet blankets, as she puts it, which I'm not sure if we're going to talk about a little more. But, you know, the kind of crazy make... Okay, yeah, so I don't surround myself with wet blankets. I'll leave it at that for now. And, yeah, I love that she says that you have to set your goals and set your boundaries, which I'm trying to be more mindful of, setting boundaries. And I think that's important, so that if you ever do have this test or escape velocity is something that's happening, maybe you can better recognize it and take better action. Isolde, how do you feel about this?
Well, I love escape velocity and I love the event horizon, right? Escape velocity is when you're going fast enough so that whatever's trying to stop you can't stop you any longer. And the event horizon is that moment where light cannot help but fall into a black hole because the gravitational pull of that black hole is so strong. So those two always have seemed to be like polar opposites to me, going fast enough that you can escape, but, and on the other hand, going slow, just slowly enough that you can't no matter what you do. And for me, escape velocity has happened many times in my life. Most times it happens when I'm on stage. When I am performing, usually music, although it's happened with plays, drama as well. When I'm performing and I feel like I'm in the pocket and I feel like the audience is with me and we're having this conversation, this monumental cosmic conversation, through the lens of music, I feel like I'm free to do anything. And there are times, you know, I'm on stage, I'm the only person on stage, and the power goes out. What are you going to do? And there are 400 people waiting for you to go on. Or your guitar string breaks, and there's literally no one else on stage. What are you going to do? And when I feel free, when I feel like I've escaped that trap, I go, "Are you with me?" And the audience roars, "Yeah, we're with you." And I'm like, that's what I wanted to hear. And then we chit chat while I change the string, and then we go on, and it is awesome. So that happens when I'm on stage, when I'm connecting with people, when I feel like we're together and we're agreed on a process and a goal. That's escape velocity to me. But then there's sometimes where it is not. And here's an example. I actually had to have a conversation with Rich this week, not today, but a couple days ago. You all may have heard that I want to start a sort of a vegan salon in a restaurant somewhere in New York City, where we're gonna do like an art night, if you will, not just stand-up comedy, but an open mic for people who want to maybe do their poetry or talk about their writing or bring in their art or sing or whatever. Stand-up can be part of it, but to sort of highlight what they're working on, and we'll all be there to support each other, be creative in a vegan space, so that we're also supporting a vegan restaurant. And I put it out there, and a bunch of people gave me all these great ideas about restaurants that might be interested, and and I was like psyched. I was so excited about this. And then Rich said to me, "Oh, like you need another thing to do?" And it deflated me like crazy. And I went, shit. Okay, definitely have to put the explicit little moniker on this thing. But I was really bummed out. And I had to talk to him, and I had to go, I'm trying something. I want to try this. I want to see if it'll work. I'm going to try to make it work. And if you can't be supportive, I don't need you to say anything else, right? Like he's devil's advocate guy. So he'll say, oh, but that'll never work. You know, that tends to be his way of looking at new ideas. And I had to sort of call him on it and go, this isn't what I need from you right now. And if you can't give me what I do need, which is support or at least excitement about this new project that I want to do, then don't say anything. Right? Because like in the next section, she talks about wet blanket and people doing things, quote, for your own good. And he heard me, luckily, and he went, yeah, I do tend to do that. And he's going to look at that behavior because that's, you know, when you're being creative, when you're being inspired to do something, to try something, the last thing in the world you need is someone to go, but that trick never works, right? So you need somebody in your corner. And if the person closest to you can't be in your corner or isn't in your corner, then you need to have a conversation with them and explain that you either need them to see what they can be supportive in that project or not say anything at all because it's not helpful in that moment. So sometimes you need to give your speed a nudge, right? If you're going almost at escape velocity, if you're almost ready to lift off and there's someone who's trying to be a wet blanket or maybe not trying to, but they are based on what they say, sometimes you need to have a challenging and difficult conversation and go, hey, this isn't what I need from you right now. If you can't give me what I need, please don't try to give me anything at all. And you have to be okay with having asked that of that person because they might be mad or whatever. And that's the chance you take as a creative person that you might piss people off. And when you're looking out for yourself and your ability to be creative, I think you sometimes need to take that chance and just go, that's it. I need to do this. And if you can't be there for me, that's cool. But don't tell me that I can't do it, right? And that's a big chasm to traverse when you're trying to reach escape velocity. So that's my thought on that. But looking at the well-placed doubt, right? What I was just talking about is that very thing, right? You're talking about the test, the thing that stands in your way that could be seductive or it could be a challenge of some sort whereas the doubt can come in and can wreck you, right? So my example of this is I'm a great singer. I'm fine as a singer. I'm great as a teacher. And if somebody says to me, "Oh, I didn't like that song that you sang," or "I didn't like your singing," I'll be like, "Oh, okay, well, thanks so much for your feedback, but it wouldn't really knock me off my stride." Whereas a well-placed doubt about my writing, even though I've written 6 books, or about my stand-up comedy, which I'm still very new at, would really knock me off my pace, if you will. So those kinds of doubts may have their place if they're constructive to go back a few weeks in this process. But if they're really just there to knock you off what you're trying to achieve, then you have to ask yourself, how helpful is that? So I kind of want to ask you all that for your own good comment when it happens, just checking to make sure you've thought about this kind of thing by someone who's close to you. It can, as she says, kill a tender idea or project. So what are your thoughts on that? How do we recognize it's happening and how do we protect ourselves against it? Megan, why don't we start with you?
This is definitely something I've dealt with in the past with my family, especially. And it's not that any person in my family has ever wanted to stand in my way or crush my dreams for any reason. But I think there's always been like that cautionary deflating statement, like, well, what if this doesn't work? What if you fail? And that stuff just gets into your brain. And it's hard to shake that loose, especially when it comes from someone that you really love and respect. And for me, how I've sort of dealt with that is to see it, try to see it from the other person's perspective, try to see it for what it is. This is a protective thing that this person is saying. They're saying it because they love me and they don't want me to be disappointed and sad. That's really what it is. And it's not the worst thing in the world to have someone love you enough to not want you to suffer. But given that, I can acknowledge that it comes from this place of love and also acknowledge my own need to not hear that when I'm in a certain place with a project. So I might wait to share the project with that person for a while. Or I might choose to share things about it that I think if they're going to nitpick it, it won't like crush it for me. And sometimes I might miscalculate, and then and that's just something you have to deal with when you have someone in your life who you do love and who loves you and who doesn't want you to be disappointed. I think if you have someone in your life who's like actually malicious and really just wants you to stay in this stuck place where they can control you, that's obviously a different situation. But that's not the case with me. It really does come from a place of love, and I've had to acknowledge that in the past when these comments have made me extremely angry and even like put some of my relationships at risk because I would get so angry and push back and then want to take like some huge dramatic action just to defy my family. Like I was rebelling against nothing really, you know. I mean I was fully capable of taking action always. It's just that I allowed myself to be hurt by something that did ultimately just come from a place of love. And once I acknowledged that, I was able to get past some of that and take some control of that, I think. How about you, Sergio?
I really like that you're able to reframe it as coming from a place of love. I think that's really sweet. And of course, not to dismiss or validate what they're doing, but to reframe it so that you can, move on from it in a more appropriate fashion. I think that's really great. For me, as far as wet blankets go, so in the past I've dealt with people like this, but, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, I think I've gotten really good at weeding those people out of my life and surrounding myself with the opposite. So I really appreciate, my family and close friends and the crew here. And listener, I appreciate you as well for being supportive and being my dry blankets, my nice warm comforter, if you will. With that being said, I feel like I'm my wet blanket. I'm my crazy maker. I'm the one who blocks myself the most. I've said that before in the past as well. So, I have to work on that. And I think this course is definitely helping in that regard with not just acknowledging it, but trying to take better steps and to apply the things I've learned. So, that's how I feel about it. Alan, how do you feel about this? Wet blankets, warm comforters, where are you at?
Wet blankets and what was the other thing?
Warm comforters. I'm just being silly, but...
Warm comforters. Oh, yeah. I love a good warm comforter, not so much a wet blanket. I love that you framed it that way, Megan, as people who are looking out for you and who love you, and I think that's great, and I think that's true, and it's definitely like part of it. And I love, Isolde, that you just modeled good communication skills through that. I really appreciate that, because like I wish I had sort of known how to do that in the years past, like, because I think I've always sort of just been taken aback by other people's needs or wants or desires. So I just sort of, I've done what I wanted to do a lot of times, but also I think I've sort of resented people for making it hard on me or not supporting it immediately, or I've probably given up on things that weren't favorably looked upon by significant others or people in my life, and so it does to me feel like a little bit of control or a desire to keep you safe or something. And I think like we do need to just let people make their stupid mistakes a little bit more. I know it's hard to let people just do whatever shit they want to do, but if we let them, they'll learn whether it's good for them or not. Oftentimes there's definitely things that we can curb people's interest in, or like awareness, that we can raise awareness. I think giving people more information rather than just saying no is better. But I think it's wet blankets are tough, because if it's someone you trust, it's how do you say like no thanks, no thanks to your wetness. Or no, that's weird. No thanks to your blanket. Sorry. This is an old habit. I always say no
That
thanks
was
to
great.
the wetness. Weird. I'm not going to expand on that. Okay.
You sure?
La, la, la.
Okay, up
La,
to
la,
you.
It'll get
Okay,
too drippy.
We don't want to go super explicit. Anyway, so yeah, so I'd rather have a warm comforter. Somebody says like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Or like, "Have you thought about this? And is there anything I can help you with?" Like that to me is ideal. Like someone who can raise concerns and yet encourage you to like just consider the concerns that you're facing or consider what you're up against rather than just telling you no out of like their own fear or a fear for you or a belief in, I don't know, something scarier out there. So because it's, I mean, especially when it's like art, like come on, mostly people I think are afraid of losing you or something, and so they fight to hold on, and one of the ways they hold on is by trying to control what you do or prevent you from doing things that are outside what they find acceptable. But if you find people that you can communicate with, and I just love that you had a talk with Rich. It's really inspiring. It's just like it's good to know what you're feeling and be able to communicate that in a way. And of course, as you say, it has risks. And I have done things to correct people in the past. Or sort of, I say correct, but I'm thinking in dog terms. But like just to let people know there's better ways to work with me on certain things. But that's a skill and it takes practice, and I think it takes awareness. So
just being mindful of approach is a big deal.
Kudos to you. What's that, Sergio?
I'm sorry. Just being mindful of approach, I think, is a big deal.
Yeah, mindful of approach. And I think if you have loved ones and friends and people that are in your life that are mindful of approach, and is that what you mean? Like that's going to be more welcome in my life and is more helpful to an
more
artist.
Warm, less wet.
Less warm, more warm, less wet. Thank you. Isolde, back to you.
Alrighty then. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I think that's the whole point of this is these, sometimes you have to have some of these challenging conversations, and over time you build your team, your tribe, your cohorts, your colleagues, your comrades in arms, if you will. And that's the thing, she suggests in the book that we should be quiet about our ideas. And I tend to shout my ideas from the rooftop because, like Kevin Kelly, I have thousands of them and new ones pop up every day, and I'll never do all of them. So I feel pretty good about that. But I really love the notion of sharing your ideas with your allies. Who are the people, and this is something to identify for yourself, who are the people who are there for you in that way, who will actually be the people who are supportive. And it's funny, I was talking to another friend, Megan, and she's like, I think I want to open a store. And I went, okay. And she goes, yeah. And I said, well, why don't we look? There's a storefront over there. Why don't we go over there? The store's for rent. Let's see how much it costs. And she goes, really? And I said, sure. I mean, if you want to maybe open a store, you can look and see what it costs. Get a little realistic with this. Let's see what and she went in and she's like, holy crap, that would be so much money. And then she said to me something that I'll never forget. She said, Isolde, out of all my friends, you are the only person who went, okay, let's get more information. Everybody else went, oh, that'd be stupid. Don't do that. And you went, yeah, let's look and see. And I'm like, yeah, of course I did. Why wouldn't I? But it's because I'm like, well, maybe it will be right for you and maybe it won't, but have more information. Let's look. Let's see what's possible first before we say it's going to be impossible. So my question to you all is, first of all, I will say before I ask the question that you are my allies. I believe in you. I have found true allies of people who, no matter what crazy idea I have, you'll be like, oh, okay, let's see what this is and let's see where it takes us, which I'm really grateful for. But so my question to you is, do you know who your allies are? And if so, do they know they're your allies? In other words, what can you do to find your allies if you don't feel like you have them? And what can you do if you feel like you have them to let them know that this is something that you'd like them to be a part of? Megan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a powerful question for me. I think all of you are definitely my allies, and I really treasure each of you and the friendship that we've built through all the time we've been working together. And I hope all of you know that I consider you my allies, and
Likewise.
That's
we
huge.
do.
That's huge for me because I haven't had a lot of creative allies really in my life. And another really important ally I have really is my mom. You know, there's no one else that, even though she's sometimes afraid for me because she doesn't want me to be disappointed, she also really believes in me like no one else in the world does. Like whatever crazy huge idea I have, she will always say, "Well, yes, you'll do that.
Shout out to
can
your mom.
Do that. You're the person who can do that."
Shout out.
And she is always the first person to line up in my corner and believe in my potential, you know, even if I don't. So that's huge. And she's also a creative person. We talk about creative stuff together. It's a part of our relationship that I really have treasured more and more as I've gotten older. And I think building those relationships, having that creative community, it's really, really important because when you're a creative, I think it's really easy to sort of get in your own head about it and start to feel like you're a little bit crazy in a way because you might have this really big audacious goal for where you want to be with your creativity someday. And it's hard to keep that in your head and still believe it's possible if you don't have those allies around you believing it with you. And yet at the same time, the thing that really makes that dream impossible is when you stop believing it. So yeah, that's something I feel strongly about. How about you, Ellen?
Ooh, powerful words, Megan. When you stop believing in it. Damn. You guys are definitely my allies. I'll just go ahead and reiterate that for sure. I love you guys. You're like my new family, and so fresh and so
Yay.
new. I love it. No, but not really that new. I feel like we've known each other for lifetimes. And it's pretty cool. And I would definitely shout out to my best friend Jason Quinn, who's an ally, and I've always sort of like used him as a sounding board, and he's given me feedback whether I wanted it or not. But always helpful, always cheering for me, and I've really been grateful to him over my life. And my buddy Scott is sort of less in the artistic career, but he's also a musician and a teacher, so that's pretty artistic. And he's always had my back, and he's definitely one of my allies, and I think that's I'm super grateful to have them. And my family will support anything I do pretty much, I think. And I want to thank my brothers Mark, John, Alicia, and my sisters Alicia and Linda, who have all listened, even though Linda only listened in to find out that I'm trying to do a podcast with my other sister, Alicia. But maybe she's listened to more since then. So, but they're my allies, and I think also like I've created with each one of them in different ways, and they've supported me and been part of my projects. So I'm very lucky to have them as a family. Of course, my mom has always pushed me to be my best and given me notes, definitely when I didn't want them or need them. Because she said Scott was better in the play than I was.
No, he wasn't.
Yikes.
He was Robin Hood, and I was somebody else. But no, but I've been very supported by my family, and that's been very lucky for me. And I feel very supported by you guys, and that's even luckier. So where do we go? To Sergio, I think?
You got it, bud.
Yes.
That's really sweet. I think it's really sweet to hear you and Megan that one of your allies is your mom or your parents. I don't have the closest relationship with my parents, so I always think that's really sweet when I see other people who have those relationships where their mom or father or their parent is one of their best friends, if you will. I think that's really awesome. And although I don't consider my mother or father or caregiver an ally in that regard, I am blessed with lots of other allies and lots of other people who support me. Of course, this group, I can't say it any better than Megan and Alan did. I'm very grateful for this, and I definitely felt we bonded over this, and I consider you friends. And yeah, I appreciate you all, which I know I say a lot, but I really mean it when I do say that. And I feel like, yeah, this is a collective that we started here. I appreciate the Odyssey and all my friends that are working towards that. And even the friends that aren't working with me on that, you know, we're all a collective as well. And I appreciate everyone else who's supported me through this and who's been there for me this past year. It can be tough, you know, because I've lost allies. And when you lose an ally, it can just make you reevaluate things, right? And reevaluate what's important and what you should prioritize or who you should prioritize and the ways you should do that. And so I think that's a big part of it too, is again being present and being mindful and being able to acknowledge these people and to reciprocate the energy and the support that they're giving, because I feel like reciprocity is very important and it's something I'm still trying to get better at. And with that being said, if you're finding it difficult to find these allies, I think Isolde was asking about that. For me, I think just trying to maybe talk about the things that you're into more with people who are close to you, with people who you feel might be receptive to that. And if not, the internet is a big world. Just be careful with that big world. But yeah, try that out as well. And so yeah, that's how I feel about this. Isolde, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. What all of you said. And yeah, to name the rest of my allies, all of you, Rich can be an ally. He's an artist too, so often we sort of have to take turns being each other's allies. My best friend Kristen is supportive of every crazy thing I want to do, yet she's also there with a kick in the butt if that's what I need to, and she knows the difference. Both my sisters also, and my other friend, I have two very good friends named Megan, and my other friend Megan is also very supportive. And the reason I'm so glad that we named everybody is because there are sometimes people are allies you don't even realize are allies, and when you take stock and you go, oh, these are the people I can really count on. This is cool. It can be really powerful. And to echo what Sergio said, if you're listening to this and you're going, I don't really have anybody in my life who's an ally, how did the four of us meet up? We met up because I went, I'm going to start a writers group, and I posted it on the Vegans of New York page thinking most vegans are cool. These are bound to be cool people. I'm going to put it out there. And these three fine people went, yeah, I'll do it. And they took a chance and they said yes to this bizarre little invitation about starting a writers group where we can also support vegan restaurants and cafes. And that kind of chance taking is so important when especially if you feel alone. Sometimes there is that tendency to cocoon, and if that's what you need, fine. But if you need more, if you are like, you know what, I really want to find allies, I really want to find people who will inspire me and who I can inspire in this beautiful reciprocal kind of infinite circle, then taking a chance on something, again, being safe, like Sergio said, but taking a chance can be really, really powerful. And I think that when you go through this book, you have an opportunity to find the power and to find the strength to make those overtures or to accept one when it's made to you. Again, being safe and all that, but really thinking about, when can I take a chance? Is it okay? And saying yes when you feel like the time is right and all systems are go, if you will. So I think that's really important. I know that we want to wrap it up, but I wanted to ask you all in this week's tasks, because we're about ready to stop this entire project. Oh, my stars. In this week's task, was there anything that stood out to you that you might want to talk about that you completed and you went, wow, yeah, this was really powerful for me? Anybody?
Go
sorry.
for
Go
it.
ahead,
Go
Sergio.
for it. No, go for it, Megan.
Okay. Sergio's so nice. So for me, the second task, take a look at your current areas of procrastination, because this has been a big thing for me. Like, I just went through this pretty major transition in my life. I started a new job. It's been taking up a lot of my brain space, but it has led to a state of really intense procrastination on a lot of my creative projects as I've been kind of ruminating over all of this stuff, unraveling these like decades old blocks that I have and everything. It's just kind of a lot to process all at once. And I think I did need and deserve some space to deal with that. But at a certain point, it does become procrastination. And I am hitting that point now. And so doing that exercise where you write down each thing you're procrastinating on, and then you write down what the payoff is of procrastinating on that thing. And I realized that, let's see, what did I actually write? Oh, this is what I wrote. I get to imagine a what if and never face the difficult reality of digging back into this complicated project. And I realized once I wrote that, I felt so freed from it because I hadn't fully acknowledged that in my mind, that that was really what I was doing. But that kind of was my problem with the big novel project I'm working on. It's big, it's complicated, and for me, once I get detached, it's really, really hard to get back into the details again and sort of remember my place. And then once I do that work, I have to let go of the what if, I have to be back in it again. And just acknowledging that felt really freeing, and I felt like it sort of cleared that block a little bit. I feel more ready now to devote the time to get back into it, because the truth is I have the time. I'm not so busy that I don't have time to work on this project. I'm just finding other things to do with the time that I have, and that's the truth. So how
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you get it. How about you, Sergio?
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and it's something that I've had to deal with a lot throughout this course, procrastination, and realizing where that's coming from and why I continue to do that. And for me, though, I think task number 1, write down any resistance, angers, and fears you have about going on from here. And I'll just list what I wrote. I wrote failure, jealousy, longing, resentment, regret, lack of energy, depression, anxiety, just to name a few. And I list those, I say those because I think, again, not to get redundant, but it's really a powerful thing to be aware of who you are and what you are and what you can and can't do, and trying not to limit yourself, though, in that respect as well. And again, acknowledging your flaws and your strengths. And also, task number 5, I really enjoyed. And what would you most like to create? What oddball paths would you open-mindedly dare to try? And that was a fun one to get into because, what would I dare to create? Well, writing these shorts and working on screenplays, music and stuff, I don't feel like I'm daring to create anything in that regard, but there are new projects and new ideas that have started to sprout in my mind and gestate as far as different kind of projects I would do. And I've talked to the crew about this before. There's one that involves a gallery, using a gallery to portray a story, if you will. And I'm sorry to be coy and vague, but I don't think I'm ready to talk about that too much more. But that's just an example of something different, something that I've never thought that I would even try to do. Display my art in that kind of way. I do take photographs and I do draw a little, but, I never saw me, using a gallery to try and engage an audience. And this wouldn't even be with necessarily photographs or, your typical drawing. So that's exciting. I think number 5, that task, that was one I enjoyed as well. Alan, how about you? Any of these tasks stuck out for you?
Yeah, I think maybe our numbers are different because my number 5 is repot any pinched and languishing plants.
Oh, that's on the bottom corner of mine.
What's that?
On the same page, it's on the bottom corner of mine, so that section.
Different editions might have things in different order or whatever, so bear that in mind.
I think this happened last week too, but I got excited because I was like, I did that one.
Hey.
I have a plant that was like just needed a bigger pot and needed more soil and more care. And it's like one of the first plants I've ever had it's like a prayer plant. So at night it tilts up towards the sky. Nice. And then in the day it just relaxes. But it's been just like literally languishing. And so I repotted it today, and I hope it comes back with a vigor now. It's got a little more space, and I'm excited to. I was a little less like I wanted it to be instantly great. I wanted that plant to just be like, that's it, I'm back. But I think it'll take a second. And then I really liked the idea of the God jar, or like a place where you put your worries and your fears and resentments. And I couldn't quite pick out something for that, but I like the idea of putting it in there and saying like, okay, it's going to be taken care of. Like, oh, this is where she says, then take action. So she says like, put it in the jar, put your fears in the jar, and then take action. So it's like, don't worry about it. God's got it. Then take action. So I like the idea of putting it there and just sort of like being like, okay, I named the worry. I'm letting myself sort of put it in the subconscious and the ether, and I'm letting that deal with it. I also like number 10 in this list of mine, which is reread this book, share it with a friend. Remember that the miracle is one artist sharing it with another. And because I was just thinking like, I am going to have to go back through this book and sort of reinvest in some of these things that I've been a little remiss on, or some of the things that I've forgotten about, and check in. And so I just like the idea that at the end of this book it's like, reread the book. I was like, great idea. But that's the things for me. I won't go over the ones you guys went over, and because they feel a little personal right now. So, and I don't want to be personal on this podcast, guys. I've been so reclusive. All right.
Yeah.
Stay on brand.
That's going to sum me up on this, I think. Thank you, Izolda.
Yeah, Alan, I think that the ability and the confidence and the certainty of who you are enough to be vulnerable is amazing. So go you. I think that's great.
Thank you.
For me, the many of these were like, yeah, that yes and yes and yes. I think affirmations are always good for me. Behaving as if is beautiful. Like if I want something, I don't go, oh, I want this. I behave as if it's already here. That's what affirmations mean to me. And a lot, number 4 of my affirmations I will read, I have energy and connection with people whom I help and who help me. I have allies on my journey. That's one of my affirmations. And I love that. I love knowing that I have allies and people who don't think I'm an alien, which is good. And then the other one is, what would I be willing to try? I'm trying it. It's keep exploring and developing a community of artists at different parts of their journeys, but who all want to work together and help each other grow and thrive and be creative. And by doing that, change the world, because creativity doesn't just have to be a painting. It can be a way of feeding people, a way of saving animals, a way of impacting the climate crisis, all sorts of ways that we can change the world creatively. And that's my overarching goal in all of this, is to change the world for the better. So that's what I would be willing to try, is that. So yeah, I feel like I could keep talking, but I know we have a drop dead moment coming soon. So I wanted to take this opportunity from me to all of you to say thank you, Megan. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Sergio, so much for being willing to take a chance on this wacky idea that I had of doing this entire book on a podcast, and really opening up and really being honest and vulnerable about your struggles and about your challenges, and also about your victories and your process. I'm really grateful that you were willing to take this chance and to do this. I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you so much, Izolda. I'm sorry. I think I'm going to go next for the closeout, if that's all right with everyone. And
yeah,
before I give my final thanks, I just want to backtrack a little. And if you are finding trouble finding allies, you have 4 right here that you've been listening to, and we're here for you. So you can always reach out to us. All the information is in the description below. We hope you're doing well and continue to do well. And yeah, I just want to thank the crew for their invaluable support, their vulnerability, thoughtfulness, and just overall wisdom. Alan, you're hilarious. Megan, you're amazingly insightful. And Izolda, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much. I'm going to remember this experience for the rest of my life, and that's mostly thanks to you all, and to you as well, listener. Thank you for sticking this out. I appreciate everyone. Te quiero, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this exciting journey takes us next. We did it, everyone. Artist Way complete. Achievement pop.
Yeah.
Yay!
And mic drop.
Megan, Alan, how about you?
Yeah, I'll just say that I'm so grateful to all of you guys, to Isolde for sharing this with us, giving us this opportunity to do this together. It's something I never imagined that I would be able to do, but it's been such a powerful experience for me. I've learned so much about all of you and about myself, and it's just been valuable in ways I can't even put into words, really. And I consider all of you my friends. It's been such a powerful connective experience, but also a really powerful learning experience. Even though not every single thing in the book necessarily resonated with us all the time, I think just having other people to discuss it with, really talk through those issues with, it was very much kept me from wandering off the path. You know, I stuck with it every single week, and that's huge. And yeah, I'm also just absolutely so excited to see where all of us go next. I'm a fan of each one of you, your work, and I'm so excited to see what you produce next, and where and how I might be able to support you.
Oh,
Yay,
likewise.
Megan, you're amazing.
Alan, any last thoughts?
Thanks Megan, thanks Sergio, thanks Isolde. Thank you guys for including me in this. Isolde, thank you for being you and pushing for this to happen, pushing for the vegan writers group to happen. This is literally a godsend, or as they say, where Isolde comes from, an Isolde send. No, this has been really great, and I definitely probably would not have gotten through it again if it wasn't for you guys and this podcast project to make it happen. So if there's a way for you, listener, to set some sort of deadline or get yourself some sort of accountability to get you through it, that will help you, rather than worrying about every little detail the way I did. I didn't have time to, and that was great because you just pushed through, and it'll all be waiting there for you if you go back around and turn to look at it. Thank you guys so much. You guys are so talented, so smart, so thoughtful, and great listeners, and you've given me so much to think about and to work with, and I look forward to supporting you as you go on, and look forward to supporting you, listener. And please, like Sergio said, reach out if you need some support. We'll do our best. We are human. Thank you again, Isolde. Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, everyone who's been listening. We're done. We did it.
Hey.
Yeah, we're done. Thank you again. Lots of thank yous. And yeah, I want to echo what everybody has said. Please feel free to reach out. You can find us in the show notes, our Instagram handles. Feel free to DM us, get in touch. But also, if you want to go through the Artist Way and you don't have a cohort, go back, start at the beginning of these episodes. We started, I believe, January 3rd, and every week we went through it, and you can go through it with us, do the exercises, read the book, listen to our my wacky and their insightful commentary on all of this. You will learn a lot, and you know how I feel if you've heard me at all. I think we're all creative geniuses in one way or another, and I hope really that you follow yours, because that is how we change the world. Creative thinking, creative problem solving, art, and confidence in the fact that you deserve to be an artist. Until next time, not here at the Artist Way Project, but no, we will be back in some other way, and I'll let you know on this show what we do next. This is Isolde Trachtenberg for Alan Fessenden, Megan Vasilis, and Sergio Giovanni saying to you to remember, please, to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2022. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind.